So hello there and welcome live here on the Hot Lap Mode VRL PS4 YouTube channel. It is the VRL Social Tournament, the second semi-final here live with you today. I am your host and lead commentator Adam Burns. You may recognise me from VRL F2, and of course joining me for this second semi-final today is our VRL F1 commentator Alex Bumberg. Alex, how are you doing today?
Yeah, thanks Adam. Morning everyone. Thanks for having me again. Doing just fine here over in England, where we're going to be racing today at Britain Silverstone Circuit. We've got a lot on the line here in this semi-final. Obviously, if we take a little look back to what happened last week, Adam, it was quite an interesting race, very weather affected.
Yeah, the first of our two semi-finals that went through last week. Of course, if you haven't seen that, I do recommend that you check that out before watching this event. But nonetheless, we'll go through a recap of what happened in that race. So, to recap the first semi-final, what a day it was, Alex, for Bono Racing. Now, we watched these guys have a titanic battle with the Oompa Loompa team in the first quarterfinal in Sochi 2 weeks ago, and boy did they lay down a marker. They finished in the top four, all four drivers, first, second, third and fourth, pole position, led every lap with Plajabal winning that race, and of course getting the fastest lap of the race and inside the top 10, maximum points. It was the Grand Slam. They really laid down the gauntlet to everybody here, and of course the randomers who went through with them, to remind them that they look like the team that are going into the final as red hot favourites. Would you agree with that statement, Alex?
I mean, of course, they really showed that they are one potential choice. They've got a team of very strong drivers, but I'd never discount a team like Most Decorated. You know, we'll see them in action today. Marine, Steve, Phil, Matt, all very accomplished drivers in the league racing world. You can't count them down. So yeah, there's other teams as well, and anything can happen. Yeah, we saw the last time I commentated back at Russia in the quarterfinal. It could go down to the last lap, and it could be 1 point, an incident that really shakes things up. And yeah, I think we're in for a cracker today, Adam.
And you're absolutely right to point that out, Alex. I mean, let's cast our minds back to that quarterfinal that we commentated on. I mean, what an incredible race that was. It had the most dramatic finish I've seen in a race like it for some time, where the Hispania racing team looked all but out of the tournament, with Mickey Tur doing an excellent job to try and stay in. But unfortunately, of course, poo on everyone, ended up so close to getting to the semi-final, and at the last moment their driver MDJ ended up going too close to AMC 33 and got completely taken out. Now of course it was a racing incident, as the stewards determined, but nonetheless Hispania given the reprieve, given the lifeline back from the dead and into this semi-final today. And of course, when you get that stroke of luck, Alex, to really put you in this position, there's every opportunity for Hispania to really feel that they have a chance to get through today. However, it must be said, we have a huge semi-final lineup for you guys today. If you thought the last semi-final was big, this one really has talent to boast. As you mentioned, Most Decorated Incorporated, the most decorated team living up to their name in VRL. We have champions in Philip Smith, the VRL Season 1 champion. We have Sir Steve Matton, the VRL's champion. We have Yoda Speak, Matt, the Season 2 champion. And of course, whilst Marine is not a champion or doesn't have a championship to his name in VRL, he certainly has proven in the first quarterfinal that he was the form driver in their team with a solid finish in Italy, so definitely no slouch for them. Of course, moving further along, we have the Virgin Racing team, the winners of the second quarterfinal in Russia, and we had Sem, our VRL champion for Season 4, showing why he looks like to be one of the drivers to beat today. And of course Tim Wentink came in second place in that race, and of course Luke M95 who won the GPRL series yesterday as well, Alex. So definitely a very quick driver there, finishing the top 5 in that race, making up that team. And of course, let's not discount the Speeders, who came third in the Italian race through to the semi-final, and last but certainly not least, Hispania Racing. Is there anybody in that field, Alex, that you feel is going to be the catalyst to potentially send their team to the final? Who are we looking out for today?
I mean, it's quite hard to pinpoint one driver, but you got to look at teams who We mentioned at the start of this series, Adam, and you did with Sem back in the first quarterfinal. It's all about working together. You can see teams working together. We've got very experienced drivers. Someone I'd look out for, Sem 12 2004, a VRL F1 champion for Season 4. That's just happened. He is on form, most definitely. Other drivers, we've got some very strong drivers. As you mentioned, Luke winning the GPRL Sprint Series the other day. But altogether as a team, who I think are the strongest, is probably most decorated. They got a little caught up with battling in Italy the last time they raced, but if they can get a clean race and get their heads down, there's no reason they can't win today. And one thing I noticed you mentioned earlier, Adam, going through the achievements of all the most decorated, obviously, Yoda Speak, our VRL F1 champion from Season 2, Phil, VRL F1 champion from Season 1, Steve, Season 3, Marine, although not having a championship to his name in VRL, he is, of course, the most decorated and two-time GPRL world champion, so he's proven his worth in other leagues around the world, and it just adds to the accomplishments of that team. So that's why personally I'd say they are probably my pick to win today.
And it's a star-studded lineup, as you said. That is the team that I am very much looking to see what they can really do today. And you mentioned the Italian quarter-final that we saw a couple of weeks ago. They knew that they were pretty much safe as houses into the semi-finals and were having a little bit of fun. Of course, it was fun to watch. I'm pretty sure if there was a team boss, they would have been tearing their hair out watching Phil Smith, Matt, Yoda Speak, and Sir Steve Matton, who, funny enough, ran out of fuel towards the run down to the line of the last lap, which is why they're in this semi-final and why they weren't in the semi-final that happened last week. Speaking of that semi-final last week, of course, we should mention that Bono Racing, through to the final from last week, the randomers came second overall. And 69 Sesame Street, now they are the team on the bubble right now. As we know, and if you've been following through this tournament, in the semi-final, the top two finishing teams today will go through to the grand final next week. And of course, there will be a wildcard spot available for the best third place team. Currently, 69 Sesame Street scored 8 points in the last week's semi-final. So the task today, whichever team comes third today, needs to score more than 8 points. If they can do that, they'll be through to the grand final. However, if they don't, then of course we'll have to say goodbye to them. And also, sadly, we had to say goodbye to the Oompa Loompa team, who, I must say, Alex, I was a bit disappointed with how that race unfolded, and they looked very, very strong in the early stages with Bono Racing, but it just completely capitulated. And I think that sends a message out to everybody here, no matter how good you are or how decorated your lineup is, nobody is susceptible or nobody is invulnerable to being eliminated today. It's going to be a very tough one today.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned the Oompa Loompa team. They were so strong. How well they did in Russia when we were commentating, Adam. It's weird to see how much they dropped off and fell off the cliff, and it's something we've seen before. A few of their drivers not necessarily coping well in the wet conditions, specifically Ice-T. We saw, if we think back to VRL F2 back at USA where I was racing, you were commentating, and we saw Ice-T almost fall apart in the wet conditions, and it seemed to strike again.
And absolutely, and it doesn't matter how quick you are in dry conditions. And Ice-T, to his credit, is a very, very quick driver. Of course, runner-up in VRL F2 this season, put a great fight all the way. And it just shows that changing conditions can affect drivers in different ways. Some shine, some not so much. But I'm sure he'll come back strong in future seasons of VRL to come wherever he may up. Of course, let's talk about the event at hand. We are about to get underway now, and if you've just joined us, welcome along to the second semi-final of the VRL Social Tournament that's happening in between seasons 4 and 5 of VRL. We are here live at Silverstone here for short qualifying. A very, very short roster. We only seem to have 12 drivers available for qualifying at the moment, but of course I'm sure as the session goes on, some of our other drivers will be available, so they may be able to join us later on. But dry conditions here at Silverstone, a track, Alex, you and I, very, very fond of, being our home circuits, of course, being Brits. It's definitely going to produce a great opportunity for lots of overtaking on this circuit, Alex. Is there anything for the viewers watching that you would be looking out for as a driver on this circuit? How would you tackle it today?
Yeah, well, as a little added bonus, I've actually driven the Silverstone circuit in real life. Great circuit, but it's one of them circuits you have to almost find a compromise with. You've got so much of this lap you're at full power for. You got the such famous complex of Cops, Maggots, Beckett's as you go down into the Hanger Straight. You don't want to compromise yourself too much down the straights. There's two big DRS zones here between just before Brooklands and then, as I mentioned, onto the Hanger Straight. It's a balance between getting enough straight line speed down there to not leave yourself vulnerable to the cars behind and be aggressive enough down the straights, but at the same time you want to be carrying as much speed through the high speed corners such as Cops, Maggots, Beckett's, as I said, which is a crucial sector. Don't forget Stowe as well, an absolutely crucial corner to get right. It's very easy to go wide and pick up a little time penalty there, and that's something the drivers will look out for. A little thing you mentioned earlier, Adam, about the attendance. I'm hearing HRT, Hispania Racing Team, have a few issues with not being able to join or not being able to race today, so that is why we're down on numbers.
And that's a shame, actually, because I can see, just looking through the list now, you're absolutely right. Doesn't seem to be any Hispania Racing Team cars at the moment, which is quite worrying for them, as we're about to see the first of our drivers start their flying laps. So hopefully for them, they can rejoin perhaps for the race. But if they're unable to, that makes it just a little bit easier for the drivers in the moment to be able to get through to the grand final. Of course, as I said, two teams, the top two finishers will go to the grand final. The third place team will have to outscore 69 Sesame Street, who got 6 points, as King Enzo already retired. Not sure what's happened to him on circuit, but he is out of qualifying already, so that's one team that down to 3 cars already. And as it stands right now, even though Hispania Racing were most likely to be the team that were least favourites to go through, with all respect to them, from their quarter-final form, it is a shame if they're not able to compete, and it will be a shame. But nonetheless, we've still got 3 other teams that are going to try to duke it out to get through to the grand final. Of course, as you mentioned, 2 DRS zones at the Silverstone circuit on the run down for Arena to Brooklands, and of course that long run, the Hanger Straight from Chapel down to Stowe Corner. 18 corners for these guys to negotiate, high octane speed, 70% of the lap on full throttle, one of the fastest circuits on the Formula 1 Canada, and certainly one of my absolute all-time favourites. It's going to be quite the challenge today, Alex. What are you looking at in terms of strategy for the race? Normally it's a 2-stop race here, but what would you be expecting to do if you were out there today?
In terms of strategy, I think the drivers can actually take it on a 1-stop, Adam. I don't think a 2-stop is something that will cross the driver's minds too much. Actually, we know it's a very long pit lane as you go into it before the club section. Ardpol Gamer goes fast as a 1:27.483. Strong lap for him. We'll start to see the times go in as Felix has gone off the track there, made a little mistake at what I believe is Chapel there. But I think the drivers will be looking at a 1-stop. Usually soft to medium is a viable strategy. It requires a little bit of tyre preservation, but it costs you less time than an extra pit stop, as I mentioned before, the pit stop being quite a long one here. 26 seconds is the average time you lose from a pit stop here at Silverstone, so drivers will be looking to minimise that, as it is probably the longest pit lane and longest pit stop on the calendar.
Well, it certainly feels like the longest pit stop. Of course, 36-mile-an-hour speed limit, a lot slower than normal, as Marion goes second fastest to join his teammates, Steve Mattam, on the front row for the most decorated team, so they're getting off to a flying start at the moment. But yeah, it does seem like an eternity when you're going through there, and you almost have this illusion that you're losing time crawling to the pit lane. You just want to get going, get your tyres on, get yourself reset and get going to try and mitigate as much time lost in the pit lane as possible. And it'll be interesting to see some of the drivers if they get caught out, because it's a slower pit lane speed than the others, and you may see a few time penalties come from drivers that don't get the car slowed up quite as much as they would like to. Looking further down the order, we've got Ardapple Gamer Benjamin third fastest for the speeders, Luke M95 the fastest of the Virgin Racing team, alongside Tim Wenting and Sem completing 4th, 5th and 6th for that team. Of course, Felix joined us. He was not with us in the quarterfinal for his team, but he is here today running on the harder tyres to try and get a feel for the track. I'm sure he'll put on the softer tyres, as you mentioned, Alex, as this goes on. Of course, we've got Yoda Speak Matt, our VRL Season 2 champion, currently on his flying lap. It will not count this time around, but he will be looking to join the rest of his teammates further up the grid. And then we've got Matthias also for the speeders, and Philip Smith, the VRL Season 1 champion, the man that started it all for VRL, had a vision, had a dream, and in some ways, Alex, got to say, played a massive role to what we have today is a very successful racing league and tournament, must we say. I very much enjoyed commentating on this tournament as a little break in between Season 4 and Season 5, which will be coming up very soon.
Of course, it's been wonderful, and you said in some way it's probably in all way down to Phil the reason why the league is where it is today. The job that he's done, obviously stepping down from I can't talk, from the admin role at the end of Season 4, focusing fully on driving. He's put the leagues in the hands of myself and my co-commentator Sam from F1. But yeah, a mammoth job that Phil has done, and we saw him win in Abu Dhabi, and I think I and everyone else hopes that he can carry that momentum into Season 5, and maybe even put up a championship challenge for his second title in VRL. But now he's got this race to focus on, and we'd imagine that Most Decorated are going to be able to get through into the final, as I mentioned before the race. But it's never a given. We could have an absolute catastrophe for the team, but on paper, personally, Adam, I'd be expecting to see, for the definite teams that go through, I'd say Most Decorated and the Virgin Racing team.
Yeah, I absolutely echo that. I mean, I said in Italy in the first quarter final alongside with Sem, our VRL F1 commentator, that I put my money on this team, Most Decorated, to be the team to beat in this tournament. They have the most decorated lineup, of course, hence the team name. They don't have the current VRL champion, of course, that's Sem 12 for Virgin Racing team. However, if you look at that lineup, Alex, it does beg the question if there is anybody else equipped to win this tournament, and they certainly will be showing their real pace today. I have absolutely no doubts that Italy, of course, they were good, but Phil himself got disqualified from that qualifying session, and must be said that he will be looking to put pain to that and try and get himself up the upper echelons of the field in this race. Now, of course, for those of you asking the question about VRL Season 5, plenty of news coming out saying that we are going to have an announcement stream very, very soon, which will be put on the channel, so do keep an eye on that. But of course, you can get the latest information live on the Instagram page for Vision Racing League, Twitter, VRL_PS4, and of course, the website, visionracingleague.wixsite.com. Do make sure to check that out. It's got great information and stats for all of your favourite drivers, teams, and tiers, and of course, us commentators as well. So what more could you want, guys? It's got everything you need and more. But back to qualifying now. We've got Phil Smith now on his first flying lap, goes very, very wide there on the exit of Stowe. And as you mentioned, Alex, he went a bit too wide there on Stowe, and he's cancelled his lap. It's invalidated it. And you're absolutely right there. I mean, Stowe on this track, on this game, it has enough about it that allows you to go around the outside a little bit, extend the track limits a little bit, and then make as much time as possible. And Phil Smith will be very disappointed, because that lap would have been fast enough for pole position if he'd have managed to keep that lap valid. Nonetheless, we're with Sir Steve Mattam at the moment, so it would have been a 1:26.8 for Phil, so he's definitely got the pace, but he just wasn't able to keep it all four wheels on the road. So Steve Mattam now sitting a purple middle sector, currently fastest of all on provisional pole at the moment. He's about 0.2 of a second up on his previous times. It comes through Stowe really, really fast now. You really want to get that exit right, and unlike Phil, he's got that exit absolutely spot on, kept it on the road, and now comes through the final section into Club, and now through Vale and Club, and now through the final corner now. Double Apex comes across the line, and it's a 1:26.9. First guy to break into the 1:26 is Alex. Very impressive from Steve. He's really showing his pace today.
Yeah, strong lap, about 1/10 of a second of improvement there from Steve. Lost a little bit of time on his best in the final sector. But one thing I noticed, especially with Phil, I see with so many drivers around here, is a lot of the drivers are inclined to just open up the wheel through Stowe and let the car run wide. And I know this myself personally from having driven here. You don't actually gain that much time at all by going out wide. If anything, you just upset the car. And it's the same in the game. With the exit strip being a little bit less grippy, it's better to actually keep a tighter line as you run down the hill and set up a straighter approach into Club. And it's just something I see all the drivers do, because it's easy to do, I suppose, but some drivers take it a little bit too far, as we saw from Phil, and ended up invalidating the lap. But yeah, it's definitely you don't gain any time from going wide, and sometimes just upset your entry into clubs. So personally, that's one thing I always look out for, and everyone does it. But yeah.
No, you're absolutely right, and of course Silverstone, a very, very classic circuit in its own right. Only the Italian Grand Prix at Monza has been on the Formula 1 Canada longer than Silverstone. Of course, the home of, the British Grand Prix, I should say. Silverstone, of course, Formula 1 has had different British Grand Prix at different venues, at Donington, at Brands Hatch, and Silverstone, of course, the most famous of them all, and thankfully staying on the Formula 1 Canada for many years to come.
Have Donington held a British Grand Prix, or was that the European Grand Prix?
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. Yes, it was. The European Grand Prix, do excuse me. You always get those confused to have like two British Grand Prix at the time.
Yeah.
And Donington never really felt like a European Grand Prix, but of course a classic British track nonetheless, holding many races, especially that famous race in 92, I believe it was, with Ayrton, or 93, with Ayrton Senna in the McLaren. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it. It was one of the greatest first laps I'd ever seen, and wet performances of any driver. Of course, similar wet performances in Silverstone. Lewis Hamilton in his debut in Formula 1 in 2008, was it? Yeah, where he won the British Grand Prix.
Correct.
Won the race by practically a minute, almost a lap ahead of everybody else. So it's brought many memories here at the Silverstone circuit, and I'm hoping to see many more classic memories today. And I've got a star-studded lineup. Don't be fooled by the only 12 drivers. Hopefully the Hispania Racing team will join us. But until then, we'll have to just deal with what we got for now. As with our Doppelganger Benjamin on his flying lap now. Currently 4th fastest overall, the fastest of the speeders at the moment. Needs to try and live more up to the name with, and try and see if he can get his car onto the front row at the moment. Half a second slower than Sir Steve Mattam overall, but he is improving on this lap. He's 1.5 tenths up, which is on the cusp of Tim Wentink, who is 3rd fastest for the Virgin Racing team. And of course, we've got the final rounds of qualifying runs to come in the next 5 minutes or so, guys. So let us know in the chat, who do you think is going to get on pole, which team do you think is going to get through, and who you think is going to have to go home to live to fight another day. As amazingly, Benjamin, with an amazing final sector, goes fastest of all. He pulled that one right out of the bag, Alex.
Yeah, I think he found a lot of time in the middle sector actually there, Adam. He had a strong final sector, but I think the middle sector is where he picked up a lot of his time there on that lap. He had such a clean run through Copse, Maggots and Beckett's. I was following him on board throughout that lap, and a good lap from Artipol Gamer, really upsetting the rhythm of Most Decorated who on lap. And talking about Most Decorated, Matt's gone out for 3 laps, Yoda speak, and has invalidated all of them. So he's probably only, well, he is only going to have one more run, so if he continues at this rate, he's not going to set a lap. So he needs to get a clean lap in. Duracell retires from the session, so Knight does the best he can do. He, I think, made a mistake on his lap, and Phil, another driver, yet to set a lap, but he is on his flying lap now.
Yeah, as you mentioned.
Down the old pitch straight.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, obviously Phil Smith setting a flying time earlier, but it was invalidated, which, if it was valid, would have been enough for pole position at the moment, as he hangs it in there through Copse Corner, of course, where the former start-finish line used to be at Silverstone many years ago, although there is a bit of traffic ahead. He's got 2 of the speeders ahead of him, as we just ride on board with him now, as he runs very, very wide on the exit of Chapel now, and he goes down the hanger straight. One of the speeders doesn't get in his way as he opens up the DRS for the long run down into Stowe Corner. You want to take a wide berth in there, chucks it into 5th gear, and then early on the power, let the car run a little bit wide. This time he manages to keep it valid as he goes into Club Corner now, into the final section, into Vale I should say, in Club left and then right. Hanks, this is almost a double apex. You want to let it drift, don't let the back end snap out on you. It comes across the line and he goes 3rd fastest, just behind Sir Steve Matton and his teammate Marine, as Marine, speaking of which, goes fastest behind him at 126.7. so he's really found the pace there, Alex. Hooked it up beautifully there.
Yeah, that's the biggest gap we've seen at the top so far this qualifying session. All the drivers are hovering around the, as Marine retires from the session, he knows that's the best he can do. Phil only 4th. There's a bit more time in the final sector from Phil there. I'd say at least a 10.5. Yeah, just getting a little bit squirmish and lost a little bit of time into Stows, and so he got on the grass on the way in, which would have unsettled the car ever so slightly. Just watching Tim on his lap now. He's on an out lap actually, so he'll be ready to go.
We've got Sir Steve Matton just crossing the line now. It's looking very, very fast, and there you go, 126.6. I was just saying, you were talking about Marine's lap. I was just watching Steve in the final 2 sectors. Absolutely beautifully done as he unceremoniously crashes it into the wall, but he'll be very delighted with that lap, Alex. You were saying the driver's finding a lot of time in the final sector, and Steve definitely doing that as well. Absolutely flawless through Magnus and Beckett's, like you said. In the final sector, that car was absolutely nailed as if it was on train tracks, as the old saying. It was on rails.
Yeah, I'm just watching Felix on his lap now. You might be able to see Adam on the medium tyre. Felix actually recently switched over to the wheel, so not seeing that blistering title challenging pace that we necessarily saw from him back in VRL Season 4. Nevertheless, he's still a quick driver, Felix. He's still got the racecraft. As he goes wide there, it's going to be an invalidation. He backs out, so Felix struggling to adjust, and behind Sem, about 4/10 behind Sem, on a softer tyre, so Felix really needs to get a move on.
Yeah, as you said, it's not easy to get used to the wheel, and as a wheel user myself, moving over the paddock is quite a while to get used to, but I'm sure Felix, quick enough, experienced enough, will be able to get to grips with the wheel very, very soon. Just riding on board now with Tim Wentink now as he goes through Copse Corner, take you a bit on the semi-on-board lap with him as he goes through Maggots and Beckett's, some of the most legendary corners on the Formula 1 calendar, some that the drivers absolutely love. You go in there full speed, throwing it in there, trying to maximise as much time as possible. Tim Wentink currently improving at the moment, 5th fastest. He's found 2/10 in the middle sector. Now he comes through Stowe Corner. Can he get the exit right just like Phil Smith did? He runs pretty wide, but it's still within the limits now as he comes through Vale Corner and into Club. He really needs to nail this right. He went a bit deep into Vale there, which has compromised his exit as he comes through the final part to cross the line. What's it going to be for Tim? He goes 4th fastest, so a slight improvement, and he does move ahead of Phil Smith, so he'll be very happy with that. But it looks like not many drivers out there on flying laps at the moment. We've got Luke coming through now, and he breaks very, very late into Vale, and it looks like qualifying, Alex, could be very anticlimactic. Not many drivers out left to do a final time as Luke goes 6th fastest. Felix also on a lap at the moment. Matt Yoda speakers invalidated his last lap, so right now only 2 drivers about to go on a lap, so we're going to stick with Felix at the moment on the medium tyres, like you said, Alex. The delta's around about it's about 7-8 of a second between the mediums and the softs, so quite a bold strategy from Felix, considering that he's only 9th fastest at the moment, and no matter what, will start in the top 10, so he will be starting the race on the tyre he sets his fastest lap on. And we'll just see how it goes through here as he negotiates the hanger straight now, coming through into Stowe Corner there. He locks his brakes a little bit on entry, but he manages to upshift early into 6th to regain the traction. Nicely done there as he now comes to the final sector, the tight and twisty. Is there enough grip left in the medium tyres? Locks the brakes on the left-hand side, comes into Club. Now he opens it up. It's very, very nice and smooth, methodical driving from Felix. Comes across the line, and he improves to 8th. Crucially, ahead of Sem, who will start on the harder tyres. And now, with Ardapple Gamer, the final guy on a flying lap, what can he do? He's free. He's a fraction of a second off the pole time at the moment. We'll start 3rd no matter what happens.
Oh
and
no,
he goes.
He's invalidated.
Yeah, he went too deep into
That's
Magnus and Beckett.
He was 2/10 up on his lap time, and he's only about 2/10 off the pole time. So that could have been a pole run for Ardapple Gamer, but just turned in a little bit too early, and that potentially has cost him pole.
Yeah, and he's a bit of a qualifying specialist as well, Benjamin, so he'll be very, very disappointed with the fact that he was not able to capitalise. And as you said, he was absolutely on it. Looked like he might just snatch the pole, but nonetheless, I think the speeders will be very happy that he's managed to get it onto the second row of grid. Of course, the leading car outside the most decorated, and that is the end of qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, let us know who you think is going to win this race, which teams are going to go through, but run through qualifying now. Only 12 runners for the moment, but we have Sir Steve Mattam in the most decorated, on pole for the British Grand Prix. Marine right behind him on the front row, so 1-2 for most decorated. Of course, the speeders, Ardapple Gamer in 3rd place. Tim Wentink, leading runner for the Virgin Racing Team, in 4th place. Philip Smith also in most decorated in 5th, with Luke Virgin in 6th. 7th place Matthias in the other speeder car in 7th, Felix in the other Virgin Racing car alongside Sem. 8th and 9th, it's Duracell here and King Enzo, the other 2 speeders, and Yoda Speak completing the most decorated sandwich in 12th place. Of course, at the moment, Hispanic Racing Team, or Spaniard Racing Team I should say, may or may not join us for the race. We'll have to wait and see, but at this point in time, Alex, a fairly mixed up grid, but it looks like most decorated, as we expected, very much have the advantage after qualifying.
Yeah, of course, as we kind of predicted going into the race now, though, I can just see a little bit overcast, and, it's Silverstone, it's, sunny England, as we locals label it, is always the threat of rain, and it's not completely dry.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about Silverstone British weather. When it's sunny, when it's hot and it's summer, there's only one potential outcome, and that's rain. More often than not. Of course, with this in mind now, with this grid in place, of course, the dynamic for points would prove to be quite interesting. But from what we can understand from the grid order, of course, most decorated would go through to the grand final at the moment. I believe the Virgin Racing team would then be next with, of course, only two of the speeder runners are inside the top 10 at the moment. But of course, we'll have to check that as we go along and do the maths as this race progresses. But of course, the magic number for the top three teams that are currently contesting is to get more than 8 points. If they can manage that, then they will all qualify through to the grand final. That is the key at this point in time. But of course, Alex, points are awarded in the race and not in qualifying. So there'll be plenty of action to look forward to at this point in time. And if you like what you're seeing so far, guys, and you want to follow us more for great racing content, and of course our new season, which will be starting very, very soon, do make sure to like, share and subscribe to us on YouTube. That's Hot Lap Mode VRL PS4. And of course, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Vision Racing League on Instagram, VRL_PS4 on Twitter. And of course, our website is visionracingleague.wixsite.com. Looks like we're having an issue with the lobby, Alex. I'm seeing in the chat the potential for a lobby glitch. This seems to happen far too often, I must say, but
it looks thankfully it's VRL's second last race on F1 2019, so hopefully by the time F1 2020 comes around, we're sorted.
And we should mention, of course, in the announcement stream we'll be able to unveil all of the details. But of course, for those of you that can't wait till that long, we have an excellent montage and trailer for you to have a look at. Of course, the Season 4 montage and of course the Season 5 trailer to let you know what we've got coming up for Season 5 of VRL, and of course all of our leagues, F1, F2 and F3, the new division of that, which we'll be talking about very, very soon. And so in the meantime, guys, it looks like we're just going to have to wait for the lobby to reset itself. So do bear with us one moment until we get that invite.
I echo the statement of Adam. This happens way too much. Codemaster, if you're watching, please, for the sake of us as commentators, please do. But I think this is a time for question of the day, if we can think one up on the spot, Adam.
Well, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Probably going to have to. Just bear with me one moment. I've got a few notes of what I could do. But nonetheless, yeah, you're absolutely right. We do need to have this lobby issue. But of course, do bear with us, guys. If you're with us, just leave the video on, of course. Grab yourself a drink or something to eat. And we should be back in the next few minutes. But in the meantime, I think it'd be a good opportunity to come up with a question of the week. Do bear with me. I did have a few in mind. I'm just thinking of what I can do, because I covered the British Grand Prix for VRL earlier on for F2, and I think I might use some questions there, so I want to try and keep it different this time.
Maybe let's go a little bit more obscure. Maybe test the viewers a little bit as we are around exam season.
Well, that's it, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And so for the moment, of course, we've got this session here, but please ignore, guys, because as you can see, there's absolute carnage on the grid there for the formation lap as people leaving the session. But of course, this is not the race if you've just joined in. We've just had issues with the lobby, so we're going to reset the lobby. We'll have the grid order there, and it will give a chance, Alex, as well, for the Hispania racing team, if they weren't able to join, to rejoin that session.
I mean, they'll start at the back, but, you know, I suppose at least they're in with a fighting chance.
Absolutely. So, just looking through at the moment. Of course, if you are new to us as well, do make sure to follow our sponsors, title sponsors, Hot Lap Mode, on Twitter and Instagram, simply as Hot Lap Mode on both handles. Excellent coverage they provide, and usually, Alex, I've got to say, these guys provide great news coverage, and it seems to be pretty much the first, if not very, very early, to the main news stories that break all the time, whereas there are a lot of people that are quite not on it, quite like those guys.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. It's not those guys. It's that guy.
Oh, that guy. Yes.
It's one man run, which makes the put where they're at today. So what's the word? English just isn't working. So impressive. But yeah, a great job from Andrea over at Hot Lap Mode, bringing us.
Yep, I mean, I'm just sending you an invite. if you want to send me one back just in case.
You read my mind.
But as you can see, yeah, we've got everybody in the lobby at the moment. Still waiting for the Hispania racing team, so I'm wondering if we might be, while the lobby is being set, of course we'll have the grid now set to a custom grid, but of course that will be taken care of by our lobby hosts, so thank you very much for them to sort that in the meantime. So one question I have got in mind, Alex, and this is a bit of a tough one, a little bit obscure, guys, so let's see whose Formula 1 trivia matches up to this one. This is going to be quite a tough one, guys, so do bear with me on this one. So the question is, for the British Grand Prix, what is the lowest grid position a podium finish has been achieved from a race at Silverstone in Formula 1? Can you name the position, and can you name the driver? Now, to give you a hint, this dates back to the 1950s. That's how long ago we're talking, and it was a 30-car field. A very, very difficult one. But, of course, we've got the whole race to get that. So do let me know, guys. What is the lowest grid position a podium has been achieved at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone? Can you name the position and the driver? We'll look through the chat and see who has got that one right as we go on. Of course, I'm looking for the position and the driver.
I wouldn't have the clue, Adam. When you first mentioned the question, I would have maybe said 2008, because I believe Rubens Barrichello, who was third in that race, came from quite far back by getting the right tyre strategy.
Yeah, I know what you mean, actually. So, yeah, I mean, in the modern Formula 1 calendar, it probably would have been, most likely. I'm seeing quite a few people naming the chats. I think AMCF33 is just picking numbers, hoping he's going to strike gold with one of them. But let me know the name of the driver as well, guys, not just the position. And just looking for AMCF33, one of our drivers from Bono Racing, literally picking every position after 20th place and just going up. Well, you've got one of them right. It's top 30, guys. So, but it looks like the lobby has been set and we're about to get underway. So I'll reveal the answer as we go on in this race. Of course, I'm looking for the position and the driver as well. So let's see if anyone. Yeah, let's see if anyone can get the driver. I'll be very interested to see if someone can get that one.
Judging by when the race was, 1950s. It could be anyone. I don't know what I'm trying to get at. I'd be interested to see if anyone knows that without actually googling it. But hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, we don't have any lobby glitches this time. I've never had it 2 times in a row. Because I've said that, it's probably going to happen now. But here we are, back at Silverstone. A little bit sunnier than last time, but we heard from the chat that it's going to be dry all race, so not too much difference.
Yeah, no, yes, it's not too much different. Of course, we're expecting the conditions to, well, hope it to stay the same. But of course, if it does rain like it did in the last semi-final, then that will be great to see if they can manage that as well. Just looking through the order as well, Alex, who are you expecting in that field to really shine today? Is there any one driver in particular that you expect to stand out in that field?
You asked me this before qualifying.
I'm going to ask you again.
And I'm going to answer it again. Steve was strong in qualifying. Ardpod Gamer as well, I was quite surprised with putting up in P3. But looking from the back, Sem on starting on the hard tyres. It's an interesting strategy because, as I mentioned, it's an easy. Well, it's in figure of speech. It should be an easy one-stop, soft to mediums or medium to soft. Felix taking the soft tyre, so I'm not sure if that's going to come into question with the admins, but I'm pretty sure he set his lap on the medium tyre. So we'll look at that later on. But yeah, Sem, them tyres are going to start to help him out come lap 10-ish, where the softs start to wear. So I'll be looking at him. Yoda Speak as well from 12th on the medium tyre. He could do something here. But yeah, looking to the front. Looking to see how the most decorated get on. 1 and 2 there. Phil in the front row. I'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch, and of course, if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Of course, help us out to try and see if we can get to 300 subscribers. of course, in the near future. I've got plenty of time to do that, but let's make that a target by the end of season 5 to get to 300 subscribers. I'm sure we can do that. We've got plenty of content that we're looking forward to showing you guys in the coming months. Of course, with the Formula 1 calendar about to get underway very, very soon as well. We should mention the double British Grand Prix almost a month from now. Maybe a bit longer than that, but yeah, it's very, very exciting times ahead. So I'm seeing in the comments section before we get underway, guys, that so Hot Lap Mode Official, as always, seems to be on the bubble straight away. The first to get this one right. So it was 28th position in 1954 British Grand Prix. A podium was achieved from 28th position, and the driver was Onofre Merriman. So I didn't see anyone get that right. I'm just not sure, Alex, if you would recognise the name Onofre Merriman. But 28th place was correct. So well done, Hot Lap Mode Official, for the position. I'm going to give you guys another question before we get underway. So I'll let the race get started, and then we will get on with that. It's Duracell here's left the session. Hopefully they can rejoin, but that's not a good start for them.
Yeah, not good news for the speeders. They've got 2 drives in. They only need 8 points, so with Benjamin in 3rd, it's 15 points, but it's going to be carnage this race.
We're about to get underway now as the lights are going up. Turn up the volume, leave the phone off the hook, leave the kids at grandma's. We're about to get underway for VOL Racing, the social tournament, and the semi-final now is underway. It is time to go racing, and it's a great start from Marine in 2nd place. He's overtaken Sir Steve Madden, who got a poor getaway as the will throw it into turn 1 to try and avoid contact now, but it's the 2 most decorated cars, Marine and Sir Steve Madden, leading the field. Tim Wentic holds on the 3rd. Phil Smith does a great getaway, and it looks like he's going to go around the outside of Tim Wentic, who gets a poor exit in turn 2, but he can't quite make it stick now as the cars all come down to the arena section, all the way down into Brooklands now. We've got most decorated 1st, 2nd and 4th position at the moment as Benjamin Ardapple Gamer equally not getting a great start off the line, currently in 5th place with Matthias Pieter in 6th, Luke in 7th for Virgin Racing Team as he goes into the back of Matthias there. Looks like he has got any damage, it should be okay, but the Virgin Racing cars running 7th, 8th and 9th respectively, with VRL F1 champion Sem languishing at the back, although he is on the harder tyres now, so expect him to be faster. Matt Yoda Speak running in 10th for most decorated. Of course, it's Duracell here ghosting and have another driver, King Enzo. I'm not sure if King Enzo is meant to be part of this race, nonetheless it's a strange livery, but we'll carry on anyway as Marine now leads.
Sorry to cut you off there, Adam. Yoda Speak really pressurising Sem. He's had a good start, made up 2 positions on their medium tyres, pressurising Sem. They were side by side into Maggots and Beckett's on the first lap. Crazy stuff.
Oh, there's a spinner. It's Phil Smith. Phil Smith, oh my goodness, he's rejoined the track, but he lost it at the end of Stowe Corner. Not sure what happened to him there. But he's down to 11th place, Alex. Sorry to cut you off there, but Phil Smith having a nightmare start, and he's got a 5-second penalty for pitting, so he must have damage. Phil Smith, he must have damage at the moment, but it's Marine that leads. Ignore the graphic that's saying King Enzo is in the lead. That is not the case indeed. Marine is the race leader at this point in time, so great start for him, and hopefully him and Sir Steve Matten can now get a move on and try and see if they can send most decorated into the grand final.
New front wing for Phil and hard tyres going on that most decorated car. So he obviously had some form of damage. He's going to try and take them tyres to the end. No safety car today. Safety car is turned off due to the frequency issues. But it's going to be hard now for Phil to get back into this race. And bad news for most decorated, but in a more positive light, Marine leads from the front with a 2nd down to Steve, who's got around about 8 to 9 tenths of a second. The gap's sort of been sat there for the last lap or so to Tim, who's been pressurised hard by Ardapple Game, who right now, it's not enough to send them through on paper, but they will win the wildcard round as they are currently scoring 12 points, Adam.
And this is the key factor, because we currently only have 3 teams at the moment. Unfortunately for 69 Sesame Street, they're going to be watching this hoping to go through, but there isn't really much that they can do at the moment. All of these 3 teams at the moment will be going through to the grand final, as Alex very well pointed out at the moment, but there's still plenty of racing left to go. These guys are not going to sit around and just accept their current position and go through, despite the fact they may be aware of that. As you can see, Benjamin Ardapple Gamer pushing very hard, perhaps a bit too hard there, losing it out of the final corner, and now it's dropped him a bit further back now as Tim Wenting sets the fastest lap of the race. Marine leading the way though. DRS has been enabled, and Alex, how critical is it for Marine, as he has done, to break that 1 second gap and avoid being in DRS of Sir Steve Matten?
Well, it's less of a threat due to him being his teammate, but nevertheless, if Steve's there, he'll pull along Tim. and that would then start to cause a problem for Marine. But yeah, DRS, it's so powerful here. It's so powerful on a lot of tracks, but it just means you can sit behind and conserve your ERS and your fuel, and then expend that in other places, whilst the car ahead has got to use even more power and even more fuel and chew up their tyres more in order to stay ahead. So it's great that Marine's been able to get that gap, and I hope for his sake that he can keep it there.
And now we've got the battle for 6th and 7th here. We've got Matthias, Heinz, Pieter, trying to hold back Felix. Felix, obviously, as we mentioned before in qualifying, is new to the wheel user community, but that does not mean he is any slouch by any means, and he's all over the back of the speeder of Matthias now, as Matthias gets very, very loose and wide, coming out of Magnus and Beckett. Really compromised his exit now. Felix on board with him now, opens up the DRS and will drive right past him, and of course, he's going to have to fend off Sem, because Sem is right behind Matthias. Is Sem going to go for the move around the inside out of nowhere? And Sem passes Matthias. They do bang wheels together as Felix goes very wide as well, but now Matthias hangs it in there, and Matthias holds on to that position, although I'm not sure if he'll be able to keep it. It was very wide, but I think given they banged wheels together and it's sent him wide, you might get away with it. But what great racing already, Alex. We almost saw both Virgin racing cars clear Matthias in one straight. Sem come out of nowhere almost Randy Orton-like.
Yeah, he sat in the DRS and got towed along, and surprisingly, them hard tyres, he's quicker on them than I expected, but he's got to be losing time to the top flight, and I still question this strategy call. Who made the strategy call? Because yeah, it's not one that I'd go for myself. I'm not sure about you, Adam, because there's clearly a lot more pace in that car than what he's showing on the hard tyres right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, normally if there was perhaps a safety car later on or something, it might work out for him. But of course, as you mentioned, we're not going to be getting that. A bit strange to go on the hard tyres, but perhaps he was expecting a lot of carnage to happen or something to happen that might allow him to move up the field later on, as we've got a battle for 4th and 5th place between Benjamin and Luke, as Benjamin goes very wide. And has he got a bit of a problem at the moment? He went very wide. He might have just let Luke overtake. And Luke gets very, very loose. The rear end almost overtaking the front, and that's going to really compromise his exit. And that's going to allow Benjamin a great run on him. Of course, Benjamin doesn't have DRS going down the hanger straight, so that's going to save Luke's blushes.
Ben's got massive front wing damage. Absolutely massive. He's lost half his front wing. He's going to have to pit. Similar fate to Phil. Hopefully he doesn't, for his sake, he doesn't get a time penalty. He slows that down quite nicely, but yeah, I'm not sure where he picked that up, but he's going to drop to the back and might actually come out quite near Phil. We'll have to see, but Steve setting the pace. He's dropped to about nearly, 2 seconds behind from what I saw on my graphic. That may be a little bit wrong, because I think he's starting to close up to Marine now as we go into the 5th lap.
Yeah, of course, the leaderboard at the moment in the top left is a bit confusing because King Enzo, it keeps changing. I'm not sure what's gone on there, but nonetheless, Marine still leads this race with Sir Steve Mattam in 2nd place, a second and a half behind his teammate. Tim Wentink, though, is catching up to Sir Steve at the moment, so we've got to keep an eye on that battle as it stands right now, but I'm sure that graphic will sort itself out in due course. Nonetheless, we are 5 laps into this 26 lap race in the second semi-final of the VRL social tournament, and it's starting to hot up very, very nicely, guys. So let us know what you think is going to happen at this point in time. Of course, Tim doing a good job to stay with Steve at this point in time. You can see the 2 most decorated cars leading the way, followed by the 2 Virgin Racing cars, 3 Virgin Racing cars, I should say, with Felix up into 5th position. And of course, you've got Heinz, Pieter, Matthias, the leading speeder runner at the moment, with Sem right behind him, the other Vision Racing League car. And this is where the points are going to get important. And at this point in time, Alex, it's not necessarily important, other than bragging rights, to which team wins this second semi-final. But in terms of momentum for the grand final against your potential rivals for that, it definitely does help a lot to get one over them in the semi-final.
Yeah, we know how stacked the final is going to look, disregarding who goes through today. Even looking at the teams from last week, so I'm still looking forward to seeing all them drivers doing battle. But yeah, bragging rights is a thing, but I don't think the drivers are really going to be too bothered. Everyone wants to win at the end of the day, No one turns up to finish second, and they're all going to be pushing their socks off. But it seems as if the gaps at the front sort of stabilising around about 1.5 seconds behind Marine is Sir Steve Mattam, and a further 1.5 seconds or so dropping back is Tim Wentink. And then there's Luke at about 2.5 seconds back, not quite being able to hold on to his Virgin Racing team, his Virgin Racing teammate. Nevertheless, third and fourth for the Virgin Racing team at the moment. Felix in fifth there as well. Hank Peter, Matthias doing a strong job up in sixth for the speeders. He's the leading speeder car right now, as he's just about holding up Sem, who's behind him. And to be completely honest, not showing bad pace on them hard tyres.
No, he's doing a good job at the moment, and Sem, as you said, the VRL champion for this season, right behind there, almost got past Matthias early on as Philip Smith gets a penalty for multiple warnings. And it's not been his luck in this tournament so far. Despite his pace is there for everyone to see, he's just not been able to keep it going and keep it clean and avoid any incidents, and as a result, not really showing the form that we all know that he is more than capable of. However, right now, his teammates doing the job for him to help him go to the grand final, so it will give Phil another opportunity, and of course, the biggest stage of them all, to really put that one right. So hopefully, we'll have to wait and see what happens at the moment. Although I'm seeing in the chat that I did mention that one of the rules that people have been talking about is when you set your laps in qualifying, Alex, you're supposed to, if you end up in a situation with lobbies being restarted, the drivers have to try and start on the same tyre. Am I wrong in that being a requirement?
No, that is a requirement. We mentioned it with Felix as we loaded in on the formation lap.
Yes.
So I'm not sure. It's obviously not one for us to decide, Adam, as we are not the leading stewards. But it's definitely something they're going to have to look at. You know, I'm not sure if Felix did it intentionally, because I saw him saying on the chat that it may have been a mistake. But it doesn't. Whether he did it intentionally or not, it doesn't change the fact that he's still on the wrong tyres. So it's got to be a penalty. It's black and white.
Yeah, and as I said, we're not trying to advocate trying to grass people up, if you like, as the term is. I haven't got a better way of calling it. But yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. And whilst I very much admire that helmet design for Felix there, it's absolutely beautiful. As you said, he's on the wrong tyres. He started the race on different tyres to what he did in qualifying. And he did qualify in the top 10 as well, so he has to start the race on those tyres, but clearly hasn't done so. And not to be that guy, but if the stewards have noticed that, that could be grounds for a penalty or worse, a disqualification, meaning that his team will not score the points that he has picked up. As it stands, though, the Virgin Racing team are still very, very likely to go through at this point in time, so that may not really matter too much to Felix, other than just put your hands up and acknowledge it. But nonetheless, bit of a surprise there, and well done for you guys pointing that out in the chat. And of course, Alex, you mentioned that too, because completely glossed over that until they'd mentioned it.
Yeah, there's been quite an action-packed first third of this race so far. Quite easy to forget. A little bit further back, Sem has overtaken Matthias, but looks like Matthias might try again into Brooklands. Can't quite get it done. But looking at Matthias' ERS bar, it's so low compared to Sem, who's got so much more ERS to expend. And as I mentioned earlier in qualifying, Adam, it's so crucial being able to sit behind in the DRS because of how much ERS you can save. And Sem and Matthias is a prime example of that. Sem with, well, more than 50%, Matthias looking at 10% there. And that's just because Matthias was ahead. So sitting behind really does help if you time it correctly. Obviously, it's a balance between sitting behind, conserving your ERS, but at the same time not losing too much time. And it looks like Sem seems to have got that balance quite right, as he's just within the DRS of Felix.
Further down, we've got Yoda Speak Matt here, VRL Season 2 champion now, trying to go around the inside into Stoke Corner, but Matthias sees that one coming and holds it off, and it's a good point you should make there with Matthias. A quick driver, as Luke is the first of the drivers to pit in the Virgin Racing car, the absolute crawl in the pit lane, as we talked about earlier in qualifying, that he's got to face, and of course, that's going to feel like an absolute eternity going through there. But as we said, Matthias was a familiar figure for those of you watching the VRL F2 coverage. He was at the start of the season with the Williams team, and he showed at that brief spell there that he was a fairly quick driver. So I think it's a great testament to our VRL champion Sem of how quick he really is on tyres that over a lap should really be at least a second off the pace of the softer tyre runners. But right now, you'd have to argue, Alex, that if Sem was on the softer compound tyres and qualified a bit higher up, he'd probably be contesting with the leaders at this point in time. But as it stands, Marine hasn't put a foot wrong since overtaking his teammate to start the race in the lead. Of course, his teammates are Steve Matten doing a sublime job despite losing the lead earlier on in second place, doing what they need to do, most decorated, an absolute contrast to their driving in the quarterfinal. Rather than having some fun, today it is all about business for them, and they are doing a great job so far. Tim Wenting in third, doing an excellent job for the Virgin Racing team, as he did in Sochi 2 weeks ago. Felix currently running fourth, although under investigation for starting the race on different tyres to what he qualified on over to the custom lobby. And of course we have Sem in fifth place on the harder tyres, who I imagine, Alex, is going to be quite the prominent figure towards the end of this race when he's going to be on much faster tyres.
The problem with that, though, is with staying out, that now we've got these guys, Marine, Felix, Steve, Sem, not Sem, he's continuing, Marine, Tim, Steve, all pitting, Matthias as well in the pits. They're going to strap on fresh tyres and be so much quicker than Sem, because they're fresher, softer tyres, so he's going to lose time, but he's going to hope, he's obviously got to hope that he's going to make up all of that time in the final stint.
Well, I think that's going to be the key. Of course, if his pace is still relatively good at the moment, he's lapping very, very quickly, almost as quick as anybody else at this point in time. He's got DRS on his teammate now. Imagine Felix probably won't give him too much trouble, but if Sem is genuinely quicker than his teammate, the last thing he's going to want for his own personal race is for his teammate to stay ahead of him. At this point in time, though, Alex, they seem to be relatively on par pace-wise, and Sem is staying within Felix's DRS. But as you mentioned, the other drivers have all pitted now. So Mariah, so Steve Mattam pitted, Tim Wenting also pitted, so did Matthias onto the harder tyres. So they've gone onto the mediums, just as you predicted, Alex, funny enough. So so much for what I know on strategy at this race. I just asked Pirelli, but clearly they don't even know what they're doing. But nonetheless, nonetheless though, you're right. I think for Sem, it's going to come to him at the very final stages of this race, but the question remains, will the gap be too far for even him to claw back at this point in time? We'll have to wait and see how it pans out, but I hope you're enjoying it so far, of course. I think there's probably a good opportunity now, as Felix now comes into the pit lane to take off those softer tyres. They've cried out long enough, and now Sem takes the lead of the race. The VRL Season 4 champion, Sem, excellent job this season for the Racing Point team. Looking to try and see if he can become the first double champion for VRL next season and defend his crown. Leading from the front at this point in time, 10 laps into the race on the harder tyres, as Matt Yoda Speak, Season 2 champion who knows everything about winning a VRL title. Close proximity to him. Those two are going to be fun to watch at the later stages of the race.
Of course, just watching Felix coming out the pit lane now. It's going to be relatively close between him and Matthias. Matthias went on the hard tyres actually, so that's a bold strategy call, and he's gonna suffer there. It's not the tyres you want to be on. The medium tyres will easily make the end, and he's just gonna drop off now, which is a shame, because he was right in there with a fight between the two Virgin Racing cars of Sem and Felix, but that's obviously gonna drop off. Ardpol Game was right behind Matthias actually, and yeah, I'd have my money on Ardpol Game and making that move past him. We actually had Duracell retire from the session. I believe he had an incident out of the pit lane and he couldn't get going again, so I think he ended up getting disqualified. But that's going to put that has put Ardpol Gamer back up into the points, which is better news for the speeders, as remember they need 8 points to progress into the grand final. It's not enough right now, but there's a few cars ahead yet to pit, Yoda Speak and Sem, and which these two will be gaining on due to how much fresher their tyres are, Adam.
And of course that's a very good point, even though it almost seems odds on that they're going to get that magic 9 points that they need to get to the grand final. Right now they're not in that position. If they were to finish in this order, 69 Sesame Street would scrape through by the smallest of margins at the moment, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I actually keep getting confused with King Enzo glitching to the front. I'm not sure if you're seeing that on your screen as well, Adam.
Yeah, it seems to be happening quite a lot throughout this race.
Yeah, I'm not sure what team King Enzo is supposedly driving for. I really hope he doesn't get classified in the lead, because I'm pretty sure he's borderline on a lap down at this point. But we're just going to ignore him. Sam in the lead, 2 seconds back from Yoda Spiku. His pace has been relatively poor this stint, considering he hasn't been able to close up to Sam on harder tyres.
Yeah, he's been relatively good pace-wise, Yoda Speak, but Sem in particular has done a great job so far on those harder tyres. He's got a clear track ahead of him. Will still be going a bit longer into this race, as will Yoda Speak. These two are going to be absolutely flying in this final stint of the race. at the moment. But of course, we're just about reaching the halfway point right now. It has been quite tame as far as his opening stint has been concerned, but I'm pretty sure we've got plenty of action to go, as R Gamer off track, we've just missed that, has overtaken his teammate Matthias Heinz-Pieter for 8th and 9th position that happened on the previous lap down the Hangar Straight, as we saw with Philip Smith in 10th position. Phil, as we mentioned before, has done a lot of good driving this season in VRL for the Mercedes team, and I'm pretty sure he'll be hoping to return to more similar fortunes. Of course, winner in Abu Dhabi last time out, I believe, Alex. You have to correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but you can see
completely true.
Yes, I'm good for my knowledge at some point. But we saw, obviously, Phil got pole position as well in the US Grand Prix, winner in Abu Dhabi. He's shown a lot of pace in the latter stages of this season. Of course, he had issues with internet trouble, and of course, the responsibility as being the lead admin and founder of VRL, carrying quite the toll on him in terms of impacting his driving. Do you feel next season, now that he's freed from those burdens, hopefully with the former at least, he'll be able to return to the form that really saw him clinch that VRL Season 1 title?
I mean, I hope so. Due to I'm not biased, but the how much I know Phil, I know how much he'd love it, and it's a possibility. You know, we saw he had a string of 2 podiums at the back end of last season in Brazil and Abu Dhabi, winning in Abu Dhabi, pole in USA. He fell apart in the race, but I think that was down to setup, and he had an incident with one of the McLarens about halfway through, which ruined his race completely, giving him front wing damage. Yeah, I'd love to see a return to the top for Phil. I can't really think of anyone who deserves it more, considering where he's taken VRL to in present day. But we'll have to see. Obviously, we've got so many strong names, you know, Sem, Marine, Felix, Ardpal Gamer. The names keep on going, and including some new entrants into VRL F1. We don't know the tier ranking yet, which we are sorting out very soon, actually. And just on this YouTube channel, Hotline Mode VRL PS4, you'll be able to see the tier announcements coming your way in a little over a month's time, I do believe. We'll have to wait and see, and it's so unpredictable. Not only VRL F1, but VRL F2, looking at it from last season. The title wasn't even decided when the checkered flag fell at the final lap of the race. It took hours and hours of Stewart's inquiry. And to add to that, VRL F3 next season, so it's going to be action-packed in Season 5.
Well, absolutely right to point out the F3 League, and of course, as commentator for the F2 season finale, I was quite shocked as to what to really call it that final lap, because of course we saw Ice-T winning the championship and along the line, but of course the incidents that happened in that race and transpired saw that taken away from him even after the race, which would have been gutted. But having spoken to him, I'm sure he's very determined to try and put that right next season, of course, wherever he ends up, of course. But looking through the order now, as we were like 14 laps of 26. At this point in time, King Enzo not leading this race. He's having a nice Sunday drive at the moment, but it's still Sem, our VRL champion at the present time, on the harder tyres, followed by Mioda Speak, who's dropped off a little bit. He's dropped another 2 seconds off him, so it seems those medium tyres are starting to give him a cause for concern. Of course, we've got Marine for most decorated, as he did in Italy, Alex, leading the way for his team, doing the business. And as we said, we've often had a little dig for a bit of banter at Marine for his decorated teammates having those records and having those championships in VRL in particular. But Marine, as he did in the championship, finishing higher than his teammates did in VRL this season, you've got to say, he's definitely looking, that if there was a driver in that team that was a champion, he's definitely looking it at the moment.
Yeah, of course. As I mentioned, he's accomplished through other leagues, the most decorated GPRL driver in its history. He knows what he's doing, Marine, and he's a very quick driver. His form really dropped off come last season in VRL. You know, Marine will be the first to tell you, I'm the first to take the mick out of him and pick him for P9 here, P8 there. But that's because we hold him to such a high standard, and it's sort of come to expect that Marine's on the podium. And he dropped off at the end of last season. I think he was experiencing some pedal calibration issues, where his brake would just flare up in the middle of the straight sometimes, which, as you can imagine, I don't need to tell you how costly that would be. But he seems to have resolved some of them, and I think he's shown today how strong he is as a driver. Meanwhile, Matt and Yoda speak. Matt is Yoda speak. Matt and Sem in the pits, Adam.
Yeah, so they're finally taking off those tyres. So interestingly enough, Matt took those medium tyres as long as he could, but clearly didn't look like he could take it anymore. Interestingly enough, though, Sem took the hard tyres the same distance. They're putting on soft tyres, 10 laps to the end now, so this is going to get very, very interesting. Now, where is Sem and Matt in particular going to come out at this point in time? We'll have to keep an eye on this. Let us know, guys, who you
should
think
come out between, just ahead of Ardapod Gamer. Does Sam and Phil and Yoda speak side by side with each other? Sorry to cut you off there, mate.
No, it's absolutely fine. So you can see, and you can see Matt Yoda Speak there coming out. Matthias as well ahead of him. So that's not really worked out for Yoda Speak so well. Now he's got some overtaking to do. The first of which is going to be Matthias, as we can see now, was on board for the most decorated driver, the Season 2 champion of VRL now, trying to see if he can get a nice run. As you can see, Matthias using the DRS there, getting a tow from Phil Smith. And Matthias has been sent for a spin. Oh, and he's completely lost it there, and that's not helped really. Wasn't really much space for him to go, but I think Yoda Speak gave him enough room around the outside, so unfortunately I think that will just go.
Definitely a racing incident.
Go down.
Just a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact. I think it's more the position of Matthias' car there on the inside, and it's a shame for Matthias. He may as well strap on some soft tyres and get the fastest lap for outside of the top 10.
And they're going to need, and they're going to need the points as well. And that's a good point, actually. We forget to mention that there is a point available for fastest lap outside the top 10. So even though Matthias, I believe, if he does finish outside the top 10, he'll still get the point for the fastest lap. However, I don't think that's the case, because obviously the issues with King Enzo, who is not part of this race from what I can understand, is going all over the place. Matthias will still finish in the top 10. One driver, however, we should point out, not going to finish in the top 10 or anywhere for that matter, as King Enzo all over the place. One driver that's not going to finish in the points today, unfortunately, we have to bring this news just as I'm getting it, is Felix, Alex. So I'm just hearing word from the stewards that Felix, because he started the race on a different set of tyres that he set his qualifying time in the previous lobby, he's required to, as I said, he's required to select the same tyres he did qualifying on. He will be disqualified from this race. So not only will he be disqualified, he will not score any points for his team. So that is a big shame for Felix. And as we said,
from the stewards there.
Yeah, well, they've been watching it. They just messaged me now to let me know that Felix has been disqualified, and it's black and white, guys. I mean, I sympathise with Felix, and I know he wouldn't have intended to try and do that. It was an honest mistake, but unfortunately those are the tyres he's got on. They're not the ones that he started the race with, and as a result he must be removed from the race. But of course the Virgin Racing team currently right now running in 4th, 5th and third, 4th and 5th at the moment, so they're very much in prime position to get into the final. But yeah,
as we received that news, Adam, as you were announcing on the stream, Felix pulled over down the hanger straight, let his teammate Sem through. I think Felix knows in the back of his mind that he's made a mistake here, and it definitely wasn't intentional. Felix never meant to cause any harm or try and cheat in any way, but the intent doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it happened, and that's a shame. But I believe Yoda Speak has just fought his way past Ardball Gamer.
He has, and that's a big move, Alex, actually, because by doing that, that's relegated the speeders down into, I was just looking for the order. It's getting a little bit confusing with the leaderboard at the moment, but now Ardapple Game are currently running 8th, although this is in 7th place at the moment with Matthias, who's 10th on the road, but it will be 9th after Felix is removed from the standings. They're getting perilously close to that position where they might not get through to the grand final, although I believe they probably will still do it as long as they cross the line and finish, the two of them. So right now, the fate of the Speeders team in the semi-final rests purely on Ardapple Gamer and Hype Pieter Matthias finishing this race.
The worry is right now for the Speeders is the tyres that they've got on. Ardapple Gamer, 13 lap old hard tyres. Hank Pieter, 8 lap old hard tyres. They're going to have no pace compared to the rivals. Matt, 2 lap old soft tyres. Do you know what I mean? Felix, 7 lap old. Felix will be removed, so he's almost like a grey area in this race. So, wherever Ardapple Gamer and Matthias finish, you can add 1 place to that. Plus King Enzo, who is moving around a lot. But 9 points is what they believe, is what they need, if I'm not wrong.
As it stands, they will get that at the moment. Of course, right now, they'll both be moving up a place no matter what happens, of course, with Felix's disqualification pending. And that will move Ardapple Gamer into 7th and Matthias into 9th, which will give them a grand total of 10 points. Which will send them through to the final anyway. So unfortunately for 69 Sesame Street, because Hispania Racing for some reason were not able to compete, and of course other events in this race out of their control, they will not go through to the grand final, which is a very much a crying shame. But that's how it goes sometimes. You've really got to be in it to win it.
It's not over yet. Look at Phil, right up the chuff of Ardapple Gamer.
Yeah, no,
correct me if I'm wrong, but that move could make a big difference in terms of who goes through to the grand final, Adam.
I believe you might be right, actually, because if this goes on countback, then I think it was, if I'm right, Luca Nick, if I remember the name, he got 7th place in that race. So surely on countback, by finishing higher, if they're level on points, he will be able to send his team through. So yeah, Alex, you're absolutely right. I'll have to check if that is the case, but I believe if they get the same number of points, 8 each, Luke and Nick, for that 7th place in the US race in last week's semi-final, will send them through. So yeah, that's a really good point. Well done for pointing that out. I completely missed that.
In terms of penalty-wise, I've just checked. Phil has got that 5-second time penalty and an extra time penalty, whereas Ardapple Gamer has got a 3-second time penalty. Just picked one up. I believe he's only one more warning off another time penalty. So it's perilously close between these two. And Yoda Speak is seemingly struggling as he's caught up behind Felix. We're going to have a 4-way battle here for P6. The drivers will not be aware of at this current time that Felix is going to get disqualified. So they're going to fight it nip and tuck. Phil is still in there. It could all go off in the final 6 laps of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see how it looks over the line, because right now it's changing all of the time, guys. Of course, there's a lot of stuff going at the front of the race, of course, but they're all spaced out. But the battle right now, and it's hanging on a knife edge right now. Benjamin may not realise it, but the hopes of the Speeders team rest solely on his shoulders at the moment, as Matthias has decided to go on a Sunday drive round Silverstone, and that's fair enough. But right now, you're absolutely right, Alex. If Phil makes this move on him, this could, and I say very much if at the moment, the way this is going, because Phil's on very old hard tyres, although Benjamin has got very squirmish there, coming out of Chapel Corner. Now Phil's pulled alongside into the left hand side, down to the hanger straight. They both have DRS, but Phil's got the advantage, and Phil moves into 8th place, and that right there could, oh, and Matt's off, and he's hit, oh my goodness, it's hit Ardapple Gamer, he's out. We only saw that briefly, but Ardapple Gamer smashed into the stricken most decorated car of Matt Yoda Speak, and well, I don't think you can lay blame to Matt for being in that position after spinning the car off. He didn't really try and force that car back on, but all of a sudden the Speeders could be going out. 69 Sesame Street could have been saved by the most miraculous of incidents there. Alex, what did you make of that? What in the world happened there?
I saw Matt trying for a move down the inside of Felix into Stowe. He must have just picked up some understeer, gone completely wide, touched the Virgin racing car of Felix, which sent him into a spin. And, you know, there was Ardapple Gamer completely unsighted, smashed into the front end of that most decorated car, and he's out, and so are his team. I'd be so surprised if Matthias is able to claw up the order. He's going to need, what, P6 now in order to get them 8 points? He's going to need P5 on countback, so it's not going to happen, unfortunately, for the Speeders unless something miraculously changes. So, as I said, it can go right down to the wire. It well and truly has, Adam.
I cannot believe that this is what we love. You know, it's like Murray Walker said, anything can happen in Formula 1, and most often it normally does. I mean, you just saw it right there in just a crazy moment there. Matt Yoda Speak completely loses it going for a move into Stowe Corner, and as a result, Benjamin Ardapple Gamer did not see it coming, had no opportunity. I don't think any of us would have been able to avoid Matt there, and his race, just like his front left suspension, in pieces. And with that, now the hope of a team rests solely on Matthias's shoulders. Right now, though, Alex, I believe 7th place will be enough in this race, because of course Ardapple Gamer will finish in at least ninth position. Of course, King Enzo not a part of this running, not sure what's going on with him, but Felix with disqualification. So our double gamer will finish ninth. So right now,
game is out the session. He retired.
but he'll still get points. Will he? Will he not? Even though he's retired.
We'll have to consult the stewards about that. I'm not sure if we were on a 75% rule.
I still think he might be within that though. So he might have just done enough to get the points.
If it's 75%, then he will. But if maybe our stewards that are watching could just drop either me or Adam a message, if possible, because that would be some interesting permutations. A little bit further forward, Sem's got past Luke. That was probably an easy move. Sem charging on them soft tyres. He's just a second off Tim, his teammate. So let's just look at big round of applause for the Virgin Racing cars. 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. Although Felix will, who's gone very wide there, as Phil's gone off again at Stowe. So half of the drivers are the most decorated, 1 and 2. The next two making mistakes. Just hearing from our stewards that the driver has to finish the race to score points. So no 75% rule. Benjamin will not score points, so Matthias has got to have an almighty climb up the order here.
So yeah, as you pointed out earlier, so with that bombshell news, ladies and gentlemen, you're absolutely right there, Alex. The magic number for Matthias will have to be finishing in 6th position. If he fails to do that, then his team will not go through. Of course, we should point out 7th might be in. What are we going to do if Matthias finishes 7th? Because Luke and Nick finished 7th on his own in for the Spaniard team. So obviously matching that, gonna have to flip a coin. No.
or we'd look at,
qualifying possibly.
Qualifying, or if we look at the other drivers who finished outside of the top 10 for 6-9 Sesame Street.
That's true, that is true. Although I don't believe any of them did finish. We'll have to have a look. I mean,
it's just equal.
Yeah.
I guess me and you will have to race that, Adam.
We'll have to literally just pick a name out of the hat of who we're going to be in that. But now that would be fun to put on the channel, just me and you. And obviously we've got to get Sembot involved as well, the legendary Sembot involved, who did an absolute stellar performance while Sem was on commentary. I mean, he's a man of many talents. Doing
Legend
commentary,
has it's still lapping the circuit of the Americas.
And he's on the intermediate tyres, and even though the track's bone dry. But yeah, I digress. But of course, moving to the front of the field, we should have a word about Sem. As we said off screen, we haven't shown much of his second stint, which he's absolutely clawed his way. Yeah, the other Sem, the VRL champion Sem, not the GOAT Sem, has climbed all the way up ahead of his teammates into 3rd position as we expected, but it seems that it's a bit too tall of an order to catch the two most decorated cars of Marine and Steve Matton, who in turn have been the class of the field today, these two. They really have.
A bit further back, Adam. Matthias making a move on Matt. I'm not sure if this is going to go too far in terms of who's going to go into the next round. I think it's going to be a really tall order for the speeders. Matt was quite aggressive there down the inside of turn number 4, but with his damage, I'd be very surprised if he's able to hold on to this position, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, Matt will fight it to the death. I mean, Matt, you say many things about him, but he's a hard racer, a fair racer for the most part, but he'll definitely fight everything that he can and more sometimes to hold on position, as he is there, really giving Matthias almost zero room, just enough space to fit a Formula 1 car in, and no more. And right now, that is proven to be a tough order for Matthias, even though we'll just have to keep an eye on it. Is he going to go for a bold move from Magnussen Beckett? Surely not. And Yoda Speak managing to hold on to that position there. Matthias putting his car in a very, very precarious situation, but manages to avoid any collision now as to go on board of him as he's got the DRS open. Surely this time, clawing his way up to Stowe on the hanger straight. Matt swerving left and right to defend, and a bit more, and he tags Matthias. And I tell you what, I'll be honest with you, Alex, there, I think Matt very, very naughty there from him defensively. I think you'll find the stewards may be having a look at that incident again. He just,
penalty.
I mean, he was swerving around all on the back straight to defend him more than he should have done. You're normally supposed to make one move to defend, and he tagged Matthias' tyre there, not giving him enough room on the outside, and has caused him to have that spin. But with that incident, Alex, looks like that's the speeders' last and only chance of getting to the grand final, all but gone, I'm afraid. So, looks like it's going to be great news for the speeders. Not the speeders, I should say. Oh, excuse me, for Hispania. It's so many similar names, but Hispania, yes, great news for them. They look like. And yeah, I'm having a terrible day today. This is terrible. But yes, 69 Sesame Street. Yes, there we go. This is why we have two commentators. 69 Sesame Street, as we said. Luke and Nick, the sole survivor for that team. In Italy, he managed to drag them through in that quarterfinal. He did the same in the US race in the semi-finals. And it looks like he's going to single-handedly drag his team to the finals. So a special shout out to him. Excellent job for him, it must be said, and I'm pretty sure he will take his rightful place in that final. It'd be great to see what they can do there, but well done to him in particular as we now go to the final lap. And it's been a very, I mean, compared to some of the other races we've had, not the most action-packed, although we have had a fair share of action in this race, Alex, but let's go back to Marine. Took the lead from the start. Stellar drive, the perfect performance must be said, just as Plogenbol did in the other semi-final for Bono Racing. Hasn't put a foot wrong. And of course, the Steve Matton, other than a slow getaway in second place, contrast to his, let's say, interesting performance in Italy, showing everyone why he has won a VRL title as well. No mean feat by any stretch of the imagination. Is doing a great job today. Of course, Sem, the leader of the Virgin Racing team, up into third position overall. Of course, it would have been interesting to see what he could have done if he qualified higher, but clearly the strategy, as bold as it was, not quite what it should have been. Tim doing a solid job for his team as well with Luke.
Considering where Sam qualified compared to where he is now, P3, solid job. I was quite critical of the strategy, but he made it work. But yeah, back to Moran, as you said, through the final few corners now, it's been a wonderful performance. I can't say one bad thing about his race today, Adam.
No, and absolutely. And speaking of which, of course, as he runs through the final corner, Marine, runner-up last time out, today is his day. He wins the race, and Sir Steve Matton will come across the line to take second, of course, as well. So bonus point for them for pole position and the win, of course. Sem, with a time penalty, will be relegated to fourth, but Tim, Sem and Luke, third, fourth and fifth, respectively. Of course, Felix will be disqualified from this race, so that sixth place will not count. And Phil Smith, despite a dismal qualifying by his standards, has managed to get into sixth place. Matt Yoda speak, of course, there will be a potential penalty coming his way for that incident with Matthias, not necessarily our double gamer, but he'll come through to take what will be seventh position. So I believe, if my maths are right, most decorated will win semi-final 2. And of course, Matthias now coming through the final few corners as well to take what will be eighth position, I should say, for his team. And a huge effort from Matthias, but unfortunately not enough to send his team through, which means 69 Sesame Street will go through to the grand final as the wildcard team. But of course, today is a celebration for the calm before the storm for the grand final this time next week. But today is Marine's day. Top step at the podium. Excellent drive from him. Winner of the VRL Social Tournament Semi-Final 2 at Silverstone for most decorated, who will go through as the winners of the second semi-final. Alex, what are your thoughts on a stellar drive from that man there, Marine and Raj Nonibol?
As I said on the final lap, you can't say a bad word about his effort today. Yeah, just a massive congratulations to him and Steve, 2 cars from most decorated on the podium, and yeah, putting them in good stead for the final next week, where myself and Sem will be on commentary. I haven't commentated with Sem in a very long time, it feels, so it'll be nice to get back.
It's going to be quite the reunion, yeah.
But yeah, a great job from the Virgin Racing Team cars, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously Felix will get disqualified. But nevertheless, putting in a good performance. We will see them next week. So most decorated and Virgin Racing both going through into the grand final. And as you mentioned, Adam, 69 Sesame Street with that wildcard appearance. And yeah, Adam, you've had quite a stint here for the last 4 weekends commentating both the quarters and the semi-finals with both myself and Sam. I really hope you've enjoyed it.
I certainly have, and they certainly worked me hard at VRL, although it's an absolute pleasure to be a part of it. And of course, I'll be very much looking forward to be sitting on my sofa, broadcasting and spamming the chat in the final, watching you and Sem do the business in the final. But of course, just to round up the final confirmed order, or provisional classification, I should say, is Marine. Once again, the winner of the second semi-final here at Silverstone. Of course, Steve Matton completing a 1-2 for most decorated. Much improved performance from him. In the semi-final, of course, we've got Virgin Racing Tim Wenting coming in third place with Sem, our Vero F1 champion. As you said, Alex, the strategy was okay, but of course qualifying really put him up against it, finishing a solid fourth position. Luke coming home in fifth place for Virgin Racing Team. Felix would have completed the top six for his team, but unfortunately he was not able to complete his result as a result of a disqualification. Now, the nature of that was because he started the race on different tyres to what he qualified on inside the top 10. Of course, there was issues with the lobby and the drivers were required to choose the same tyres. Felix made that mistake and therefore his result will be null and void, which promotes Philip Smith up into sixth position with Yoda Speak in seventh to complete it off for most decorated. So they will be going through to the grand final, winning the second semi-final, just similar to Bono Racing in the previous semi-final. And of course Matthias finishing in 8th place, the last of the confirmed runners. But unfortunately for him and the speeders, it was not enough. How crucial that incident with Ard Apple Gamer and Matt could have been. That, Alex, that pretty much could have been the difference today, that incident with Ard Apple Gamer.
It could have been. I'm just hearing from the chat, obviously that disqualification was not officially ruled, and as per the sporting regulations, fitting the wrong tyres at the start of a race is the equivalent of a 10-second stop and go time penalty. So that could be converted into a 30-second time penalty, and the stewards will look into that. We can't give you an official ruling now, but I hope that it's all done and sorted very soon, and you'll be able to catch the official final results on the Vision Racing League Instagram account. That's at Vision Racing League on Instagram. And yeah, as you mentioned, Adam, back to your question, it's a crazy race. A shame for the speeders, but it always seems to be crazy in the last few laps with drivers who are fighting to stay in the tournament crashing out, Adam.
Yeah, they seem to get a bit more bold as it goes on, more risks and plenty more of that to look forward to. And of course, Alex, the grand final itself. I mean, I don't think we can sell it more than we already have, but I'm going to try to a little bit more. For those of you watching us right now, and of course if you're watching us the highlights at a different time throughout the week, the grand final. Now, of course, the we should mention that it's going to be a little bit different in terms of the format, where we've got the 25%, we've got the qualifying, the 25% race, and of course a reverse grid race, of course. So it's going to be two heats, not just the one, to determine which team is going to win the VRL social tournament. And of course, my co-commentator today, Alex, will be commentating our final, of course, with the ever-familiar and ever-brilliant VRL F1 commentator, Sem. And of course, Sembot may be making an appearance. I cannot guarantee it, but we'll have to wait and see. But all that's left to say from me, guys, is to make sure that you check that out and tune in this time next week on the Hot Lap Mode VRL PS4 YouTube channel. Of course, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And all that's left to say is thank you, Alex, once again for joining me on this broadcast. As always, it's been a pleasure commentating with you on this race.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for putting up with me. Thanks for giving me a few things to correct you on, Adam. But no, I think Vera, I need to say a big thank you to you. You've been here for all the quarter and the semi-finals, and obviously I'm sure Sam's watching now. So Sam, looking forward to joining you next week, and it should be absolutely crazy. I can't wait to see it. We've got a really interesting format in place with reverse grids. Points are going to be just crucial, and I'm really interested to see who will come out on top. So yeah, thank you very much.
Absolutely. So guys, all that's left to say is thank you for joining us once again, and of course we've got the grand final this time next week to check that out. But who is it going to be? Let us know obviously on our Instagram and Twitter pages for Vision Racing League and of course VR_PS4. Let us know who you think is going to win. Is it going to be Bono Racing? Is it going to be most decorated? Is it going to be the randomers maybe, or Virgin Racing Team, or perhaps the outside chance it might be 69 Sesame Street? There's only one time and place to find out, and that is this time next week on the VRL YouTube channel, Hot Lap Mode PS4, VRL PS4, and we will see you then. Goodbye.